What is up, everyone? JD here. I hope you're all doing well today. Today I'm excited to be bringing you another new knife review. Before I jump into that, today's pocket check is going to be my Civivi Cogent. This one here has the 14C28N with the coated blade, G10 handles, and a reversible deep carry pocket clip. This button lock is on bearings and it has really nice action. Having done that, let's go ahead and jump into the actual knife unboxing. So as you know, I have changed my format here recently. What I'm doing is actually opening the box, carrying the knife for a little while, and getting my thoughts and impressions so that I can show you the unboxing, everything that comes with the knife, and then actually give you the full review and impressions. So without delay, this is the Civivi Chevalier. This one here is in the cabochon wood, which I really do like. I have the cabochon wood on my Altus, which I really do enjoy. I love the look of this, and it feels so good in hand, and just a really well done wood handle on a pocket knife. Let's go ahead and jump in here and see what is in the package. If you're familiar with Civivi, they generally come with this same gear. So you get the box, you get a very nice pouch that comes with some swag, the warranty information, and the knife. So you'll see you get some stickers in here, you get your little warranty information, you get a microfiber cloth, forgot to mention that, and then of course you get the actual knife itself. So let's pull this out of the package. We'll get this stuff out of the way and go ahead and look at the knife. So as you can see, the cabochon wood looks very similar, just a slightly different pattern. You get more wood grain looking here and a little less on the Chevalier. This has all blacked out hardware, which I really appreciate the fact that they include the standoffs with that. It does have a reversible deep carry pocket clip, very nice flipper tab. You also have fullers for deployment as well. And let's give it a flop. There you go. Very nice blade shape. This is a very utility shape Wharncliffe style blade. Let me go ahead and run it through the specs real quick. Then we'll do some comparison knives and I'll give you my thoughts and impressions on this one. So the Chevalier has a 3.5 inch 14C28N blade, 4.375 inch handles. Overall length on the Chevalier is 7.87 inches and it's claimed to have 3.2 ounces. Let's check to see what that actually looks like, because you know they have the micarta version. I don't know if they have a G10 version, but I'm always curious to see how the wood compares to the claimed weight. So claimed weight again was 3.2 ounces, and even with the wood overlay handle, the wood handles, it does come out to be 3.2 ounces. So right on point for the weight. Now I don't know if they list the weight differently for the wood or the micarta, and I can't remember the other option. I apologize. But let me go ahead and run through the comparison knives for everyone, and then we'll jump into thoughts and impressions. First up is going to be the Spyderco Yojimbo 2, and again I am doing it now from the heel of the handle so that you can see how long it really is. Hopefully you get a really good sense of just how long that knife is. Next up, I'm going to bring out the Spyderco Shaman. This one does have the dark matter handles made by Carbidized over on Instagram. They are fat carbon scales. They are the skinny scales as well. As you can see, it's closer in length to the actual Yojimbo 2 than it is the Shaman, and I'll bring those in for a closer reference so you can get a really good sense of the length there. You can see cutting edge, a little bit more cutting edge on the Chevalier, but the length is very comparable to the Yojimbo 2, which is also very close in size to the Para 3. I actually got rid of my Para 3 because I actually prefer the Yojimbo's ergos and utility cutting ability. Let's go ahead and bring out my crossbar locks out here for the crossbar comparison. First up is going to be the Benchmade bug out. As you can see, the Chevalier is just going to be a little bit longer. And then I will bring out the SIG K320 made by Hogue. This is going to be a little bit longer than the Chevalier because it is an 8-inch knife. Probably a little hard to tell on the table, but hopefully that helps you if you're familiar with these two knives. Last but not least, we'll bring out my budget comparisons. These two knives are very budget friendly. First up is going to be the Civvivi Royal. This is a sub 3-inch knife, so you can get a really nice sense of the length of the Royal next to the Chevalier. And then last but not least is going to be the Buck 110. This one's an American-made knife under 28 bucks. You can see the Chevalier is actually in length between these two. Really quickly, because I've kind of gotten away from it, I am going to do a little bit of a profile comparison. So I will do it against the Bug Out, so you can see it against the thinnest knife here. And you can see the Chevalier just a little bit thicker, not too bad. I'll bring the Yojimbo 2 back out here because this also represents the pair of 3. I mean the pair of 3. You can see just a little bit thicker, not too much, not too bad. And really don't think that we need, we'll bring out the, here you go, Civvivi Royal. So you can see it's a little bit thinner than the Royal, which has contoured scales. These have the flat scales. So let's run through the knife really quick. So first and foremost, really like the ergos on this. Very nice. Feels very comfortable in hand. You do feel the pocket clip poking a little bit, but that's kind of common and par for the course with the Civivis. The advantage though is that these go in and out of the pocket really nice, carry very deep in pocket, and they're reversible, which I appreciate from Civivi. The handles actually look really nice and they feel really nice too. They have good contouring, chamfered all around the edges. I'm not contouring, I'm sorry. They have nice chamfering all around the edges. So that makes it feel very comfortable in hand, just kind of melts into the hand, and it feels good when you're using it for long periods of time. I like the fact that the flipper tab acts like a little bit of a finger guard there, keeps that finger locked into place, and you get up plenty close to the blade's edge. You do have steel liners that are milled out for the weight reduction. You do have a lanyard hole or a lanyard bar back here that you can use if you prefer having the lanyard. You have really nice access to the button lock. The button lock is not sitting up proud, but it's not sitting completely and totally flush, so you can find it fairly quickly when you're not looking. And you do have to push what I have found all the way in to get it to drop shut. If you just do it part of the way, it doesn't quite. Well, actually, I guess maybe it is broken in now that I've carried it for a few days, but it feels like you have to push it pretty far in. So that's almost all the way in, like halfway it disengages and stops. Maybe not. I swear earlier when I was doing it, maybe it was just I didn't realize I didn't have a good angle, but it feels like it has good pressure, and the button lock feels like it provides a very nice detent, which takes us to the flipper tab. Flipper tab has nice jimping all the way up to the top, so you get a nice grip whenever you use that. The fullers are pretty sharp, but they're not uncomfortable. When I say they're sharp, that they're that level that you want so that it catches on the meat when you go to deploy it. So I don't use the fingernail. I kind of, let me try that again. I totally failed when I'm trying to talk through it. I use the meat of the finger to kind of deploy it. And I really like that as well because there's actually just enough of a edge to kind of catch to do the thumb deployment, which I do have larger hands, so it's really not the knife's fault that I have a little bit of a hard time because I got to dig in a little bit. But I have found that I can do this a little bit more consistent than I would have thought with having such a thin fuller. Now, it did come uncentered after like I don't know, 20 flips. I tightened it back down and I've carried it for a full day after that, and it has not come back uncentered, and the action has remained nice and smooth as you saw earlier. You can see that this is running on ceramic bearings, and Civivi's bearings, let me see here if I can, well, you can see the stop pin, so we can at least talk about the fact that it has the shouldering for the stop pin, and you might be able to see right up in there the ceramic bearings that are on the bronze washers, but they're hollowed out. They're not full solid washers. Don't really find that with Civivis that you need to swap them out to skiffs too much. They have fantastic action. Now the blade itself, it's actually a little bit thicker geometry with this particular blade shape, which I appreciate. It keeps strength out on the tip. It has a nice tall, fully flat ground blade. It does go through the materials really nicely, and it does have a factory edge, but what I have found is that when you're going through the material, you actually can get a sense of that thicker geometry. And I'll bring a sheet of paper out here so you can see that. So it will go through just fine, but I have found that you feel a little bit more resistance as you go through the paper. Now, it will go through just fine with no issues, but again, I do feel the thickness of the geometry when I'm actually cutting away at the paper. Sorry, it kind of rolled there, and you can see it just kind of folds over as you go through it, and that's the thickness of the geometry coming through. Let me get this out the way. I did bring out some cardboard here too, so I can show you this as well. It does go through, but again, you can feel it pulling the wood apart more so than you do with, say, like the Conspirator. But that does not mean it won't go through. It just has a little bit more resistance, it feels like. But the edge, for my example, feels really nicely done. I have had no issues with it whatsoever. But again, just feeling a little bit different than the Conspirator. So now that I've talked about the knife itself, what are some alternative recommendations that I can make? So first, I'll stay in Civivi's lineup. If you do not like this Wharncliffe style blade, you can go ahead and get yourself the Civivi Cogent, which is roughly the same price. And it gives you a little bit of that clip point, drop point blade shape if you like that a little bit more. I will say that I have found it does kind of lock you in behind the flipper tab very similarly. But what I have found is that I do actually prefer the more neutral handle grip. It feels a little bit more comfortable for long periods of use for me, and that's a preference, than it does with this contouring. But again, this does feel very good in hand. I know some folks have said they don't really like the hammer, the hammerhead shape on the Cogent, but I think it really is nice and does a good job locking you in, and the jimping's in a good place. Now, I will say the jimping's a little bit further back on this knife here, but because of its neutral hand position or neutral grip position, you actually can just kind of adjust back. I find that I end up sliding up, and then when I want to use the jimping, I kind of slide the knife back. Now, I don't know if it would have been good to carry the jimping out a little bit further, sort of like they did on the Cogent. I think it would have been good so that if you needed to work with the tip, you could. But that's probably not as common of a need for that type of blade shape as it would be for this one here. This one here, I could see why you would need to come out if you're trying to do some detailed work. And you do know that this is overall just a thinner blade, and a thinner stock, a thinner geometry on that Cogent. So those are some of the differences. The button feels very similar, and the action feels really snappy on both of these. Here's the thing for me though, I actually like the Chevalier so much that I think it's finally going to knock the Cogent out of my rotation in my lineup. I like the wood look in the satin blade here, but it is a stone wash. I didn't talk about that. A very nicely done stone washing, as you can see here. They definitely ran this for a good amount of time, and they just knocked the satin finish all the way down with that stone wash. It looks really, really good. But I think this is going to replace the Cogent in my lineup, and I still really like this. I feel like this is the best dual deployment method that you have. I say dual deployment method, but when I say that, I mean you have the flipper tab, whoops, you have the gravity, and you can reverse flick it if you, with a little bit of practice. You don't have to put a whole lot of tension on there, but I can get it pretty consistent. So I say dual deployment, but it actually, if you just use the flipper tab and the gravity lock, it works really well. But I think this works a little bit better for me, how I use my EDC. I like the thinner profile overall that it has, a little slightly less contouring, but still locking you in place. So I do like this a lot. This knife is about $70. There's a knife that I haven't debuted on the channel yet. There's a Kershaw that has 20 CV G10, and it's a very thin, a la bug out thinness EDC carry, but it is a smaller blade. It's just over 3 inches. I think it's like 3.12. That one's $99, so it's a little bit more expensive than this. But the other knife that I would probably recommend if you don't like the sheep's foot, I actually like the Conspirator a lot better than I do the Cogent. Yeah, it is a bigger blade. It is a bigger knife overall compared to the Cogent, but it feels really good in hand. It's really well done. It does feel a little bit more lethargic, but that's because the blade weight and how much more blade there is there to add to that weight, and the fact that they use the same button lock and it has the same contact points just makes it feel a little less snappy, but it's still really well done, has good detent. It's very difficult to fail. You would have to want to do it on purpose. Even if you're giving it a light flip, it's still going to deploy. It's just going to feel a little slower compared to these lighter, thinner blades on these other two knives. For this price point, I mean, if you wanted a USA knife, I mentioned that Kershaw has the Skyline, I think. I hope I said the name. Now that I'm thinking back, I don't know that I said the name to everybody. I apologize. But the Skyline, that's a very nice, thin EDC alternative, USA made. Another USA made knife that you could consider would be the $115 Case Kinzua. It's roughly about the same size, and it has a thicker geometry, has that work knife mentality where it's overbuilt with a thick geometry to, be able to handle and being used and abused and used hard, but it's still a nice carry size. So that's something that compares very well, and it has very drop shut action as well. It's really hard to think of a bunch of different knives that come in at this price point that are alternatives, especially if you're looking at this because it is the button lock. This is a very compelling knife. I do actually personally prefer it more than the Cogent, but the Cogent action and the Chevalier action feel very similar. You feel very locked in place with slightly different ergos, and of course you have the clip point versus this Wharncliffe style blade. I do recommend this knife. It is a great buy. There's no debating the fact that Civivi makes quality knives that have good action. I did have to send my Cogent in when it developed block rock that I could not correct on my own, and they warrantied it out. It did take longer because they have to wait for the parts to come in, and they're generally only getting them in once a week. So it does take longer for that warranty claim, but they warrantied it. They couldn't fix it on their end. They actually ended up replacing the entire knife. So I don't know if that helps anyone feel a little bit better about any possible hiccups that you might encounter with Civivi, but that's one of the good things I like about a big brand is they do warranty and back up the work. If you did enjoy today's video, do me a favor, leave a like. It does help me out. If you enjoyed the content, consider subscribing. I'd love to have you follow along. If you already are subscribed, thank you. I appreciate the support, and be on the lookout for the giveaway that I'll be doing up here in May. I am getting ready here this week to do the announcement for April. This will be up in time for that. If you want to go to my channel and just search the giveaway, I generally try to put that in the hashtag so that it makes it easy to find on my channel. Thank you again for all the support. I hope you have a fantastic week, and until next time, peace.